What up? It's your boy, the Incredible Man, and yes, I am back at it again. And this is New Amsterdam Season 4, Episode 18. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, man. This episode, the title just spoke very heavily throughout the entire episode. Let's talk about it, man.
I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings, I'ma be fine.
Going into this episode, I knew we were going to see Veronica. I just knew right off rip, man. We haven't seen her in a minute, so I knew this episode we was going to see Veronica, and it was just utter disappointment when you see Veronica, man. I mean, it just sucks all the air out the room. There's a cold shrill, there's a banshee screaming in the distance whenever you see Veronica. It's just a lot of stuff when you see Veronica, man. But I feel like this episode was yet again another good episode of New Amsterdam, and it feels like we kind of got back to the roots of what New Amsterdam used to be. Had we done this a couple seasons ago and earlier this season and last season and everything, we might have been fine and we might have been getting a season 6, but because they didn't stick to those roots, man, and we are where we are. But this was another great episode of New Amsterdam, and it took you back to how it used to be, and I really enjoyed that, man. I also gotta say, the songs that they played throughout this episode were they were spot on with every situation that was going on with the entire episode, man. Love those. This episode we see that Iggy is trying to work on his relationship with his husband Martin, and Martin's there for it, but he's not there for it. You know what I'm saying? But I love the fact that Iggy's trying. And I will say this. Everybody had to learn something in this episode. You know what I'm saying? Everybody from our main crew, everybody had to learn something. Iggy had to learn something about him and his husband's relationship, and he had to learn that from Juliet and Isaac. And I gotta say, I love seeing Juliet again, man. I don't know what it is. I like Juliet and Iggy's dynamic with him being her therapist. I feel like he breaks through to her, but this episode definitely he broke through to her, but she also broke through to him about him and Martin's relationship. Even if she didn't know she was doing it, that whatever he was doing to help her also help her in her relationship, also help Iggy in his relationship. And at the end of the episode, we see that Iggy decided to go to therapy on his own because what his problems was, it never really revolved around Martin. It was something that Iggy had to work on himself. And I'm glad that he learned that. And I just love seeing the dynamic between him and Juliet. And I'm glad that Juliet really, I don't want to say got out of her shell, but she's starting to really develop feelings. And, we've seen her go through all of these seasons. So huge ups and big ups for Juliet's character this episode, man. Floyd. Let's talk about Floyd this episode. We see Floyd picking up this old car that belonged to his dad, and we see that he also has a patient this episode, which Floyd had to learn something as well. This patient, has been upcharged by New Amsterdam, and he doesn't want to have the surgery, even if it does save his life. He just can't afford it. He can afford to live. He can afford to die. Die. Either way it goes, he can't afford to just pay for it. So Floyd goes around and finally gets the dude to take this surgery, and he has to call multiple people to even come in for a consult because the dude, the tumor had kind of amassed on his liver just a little bit more than they expected, and he was calling multiple people trying to just get them to help. And what I realized this episode for Floyd is that we were a little upset with him betraying the squad, those moments he did, but now he's starting to really kind of just come back into his own, and I'm really glad that Floyd really did that. But I noticed another thing this episode. It seems like it's probably, if I had to speculate, I'd say maybe a month or two tops. I want to say, maybe like a month and a half, maybe, because it's been a minute since everything that took place in episode 16 and 17. So whatever time frame we're in, it's enough for everybody to have healed and really just moved on a little bit. You know what I'm saying? We get to see Mia this episode. I love the holistic doctor lady. I love Mia, but we see her and Bloom working together. Not together, but then together and then not together again. It was a weird dynamic between her and Bloom this episode because they shared a particular patient that they were both trying to help. But we see that Bloom is lashing out at Mia because of all of the stuff that's going on with Layla. Because Layla tries to pay Bloom back this episode, and she was like, well, it's not much, but it's $1,000, and she pays it to her in a brown paper bag, like they're doing a drug deal. And then she was like, well, do you want to count it? You know what I'm saying? And she was like, well, I got to pay you in cash because the lawyer doesn't want a paper trail. You know what I'm saying? I will say this though. I called it in last week's episode, man. To be fair, I called it. Bloom realizes that her relationship with Layla is toxic, and she realized that this episode. And I just feel like, it's time for Layla to go. If she gets divorced, she gets divorced. Not for everybody. There's different circumstances and everything, and I don't wish that upon nobody. But I'm just saying, with Layla, her relationship with Bloom is beneficial to her now, so now she wants to use that relationship, and Bloom finally realizes that it's toxic. But anyway, Bloom and Mia is working together, trying to solve this case for the patient, and it comes across that, it was a simple thing. He has celiac disease, and Bloom tells Mia that, she used to have stuff to lean on. She used to use stuff as a crutch. And Mia kind of tells her, do you know what a crutch is used for? It's to lean on something and not to really get over whatever you're, dealing with. So Mia decides to help Bloom try to really relieve her stress and kind of get over whatever she's dealing with. And we all know that it's that toxic relationship that she's dealing with Layla. It's just, it just annoys me, man. Good to see my boy Casey up and running about this episode. I love seeing Casey, man. Casey's cool. I love Casey. I love him and Bloom's dynamic. I will say this, though. I think Bloom would have lost it a long time ago if she didn't have Casey, man. Casey's her one true OG friend. And I love the fact that Mia, when she was talking to Bloom, it was like, how can I help? So that kind of just put Mia in the whole core crew now. Mia's a part of the squad. I mean, I know she was when she was part of the resistance, but now with that how can I help, she's definitely a part of the squad now, man. We didn't see Dr. Wilder this episode, and that's because we met Veronica again this episode, man. But we see that Max has an overall scheme. He tried to go one route, and Karen told him that wasn't going to work because Veronica already laid that out to the board. So he had a different route to try to let everybody know how New Amsterdam is working now. They're all about the cash. They're all about that paper, that cheddar, that dinero. And it really seemed like it wasn't working at first. And then like the people started taking the bait and everything. And Veronica took the bait. I was a little skeptical because I didn't know where Max was going with this. It seems that Max has an overall plan with this whole scheme. Like it's not just about Veronica because she came in and decided to buy the little, what is it, urgent medical care? Well, anyway, the little place where Max works, she decided to buy that. But that was Max's plan all along, was for her to buy that, because now it's like a Trojan horse plan. So now I'm excited to see what's going on, see what they're going to do with this, because I want to know why he needed her to buy them out. There was a purpose to have her buy them out, but I don't know what it was. Anyway, okay, I'm veering off. Now, lastly but not least, man, we have Max and Sharp this episode. We see that Sharp has fully recovered, but she still hasn't recovered her, ability to speak yet. Now, I've had an aunt that had a stroke, man. So I mean, I've seen like how bad it can get and stuff like that. And Sharp is up walking around. She can do anything she wants, just can't speak. And I'm sure that's different for her, but with her being on talk shows and all this other type stuff, it's different for her. But we see her struggling this episode, and we see Max just telling her that she's perfect. They had this weird dynamic because he kept telling her all these great things about her and everything, and she wanted him to tell her, because she's not perfect, because, she can't speak or anything like that. And I did notice that Max couldn't even say that I'll be with you forever anyway, even if you can't speak. He never actually said those words. He was like, well, if it is, it is, or something like, it was something like that. It was like, he never actually said those words that I'd be with you even if you can't speak again. He never quite said those words. And that kind of put him and Sharp on a rift a little bit. It wasn't going to break anything, but we see that it was kind of messing up their relationship, because she wanted to kind of figure it out on her own, because Max kept saying that she was perfect, and she didn't feel perfect, but that was something to deal with her own faults and everything like that. But I will say this, I knew that she was going to speak by the end of the episode. I knew that going into this episode, man. I knew that by the end of this episode, Sharp was going to be able to speak, and boom, bam, at the end of the episode, she did, because no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and they were able to speak, and then everything ended on a high note. So now we got to wait to see what the whole overall plan is for Veronica. But I will say this, though, man. The episode was good. I mean, it felt real good, man. It felt like true old school New Amsterdam. It wasn't dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, it was just the stuff that we needed and wanted to see, man. It got back true to the heart of New Amsterdam. The only thing is, it's just a tad late. But I still enjoy it, man. This is your boy, Dick Incredible. Don't forget to smash the like button until you can't smash any more. Comment down below, and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them. And subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. Peace out.
All out, and I am here to stay right now, so don't call